As America moved steadily down the road to civil war, those who supported the movement toward freedom stepped up their efforts to undermine the rights of slaveholders. Free citizens, both black and white, who viewed slavery as the greatest immorality of the time, openly supported African American initiative. Step by step, they evolved a covert network of conductors, routes, and hiding places known as stations, all designed to assist fugitive slaves in getting north to the free states and even Canada. These pathways to freedom and the greater resistance movement became known as the Underground Railroad.
There was an often told story that it started around the mid-1830s after the building of the railroads started in this country. Some slave catchers were chasing a slave, and I believe the area was Ohio. And the slave ran away into a wooded area. And the slave catchers followed him there, and he suddenly disappeared. It was as if he ran away on an underground railroad. Well, it became a joke, but the joke caught on. When the abolitionists and the anti-slavery people got involved with helping slaves escape, they took that term on. And those who were helping slaves escape, they called conductors. These were the people who went right into slave territory and got the slaves and brought them out. And when they brought them out, they brought them to places where they could get food and shelter. And these places were houses or barns where abolitionists and anti-slavery people were at. And they called these houses stations. And the people who lived in these houses and who provided this information and this stuff, they called them station masters. And then others who became involved, like this, for example, they contributed money, they called them stockholders. And those who watched, they called them pilots. Any term that they used in the railroad, they used to describe the people who worked in the Underground Railroad.
Both runaway slaves and those who helped them faced harsh penalties if discovered. In most instances, conductors, agents, and station masters remained anonymous, and fugitives were forced to trust in information that was often hearsay, passed on in a whisper. That any first-hand information exists at all concerning activity on the Underground Railroad is due largely to the remarkable efforts of one historian who is said to have operated the Grand Central Station of Underground Railroad stops. William Still was a free black man who first began work in the office of the Pennsylvania Anti-Slavery Society in 1847 as a janitor and clerk. His greater abilities were soon recognized, and Still quickly rose to head the organization's General Vigilance Committee to aid runaway slaves. His duty as chairman was to keep a record of every fugitive that came to the committee, a mandate that brought him into contact with more runaway slaves than perhaps any other person on the Underground Railroad. Still interviewed hundreds of fugitives who passed through the office, meticulously recording the details of their escapes. Years later, in 1872, he would publish these eyewitness accounts in his massive landmark work, The Underground Railroad.
William Still, although he was a free man living in Philadelphia, his family had risks because his mother was a fugitive. Some of her children had been born in slavery. And if she were ever found out, or if her owner had made a big attempt to come after her, she could have been returned to slavery too. So he was often leading a secret life. He had to keep the family history quiet while he was working. And he was at some risk of keeping all of these records too, because the records were clear evidence of this scale of help that they were giving.
William Still was at the hub of one of the Underground Railroad's most critical routes, the Eastern Line. It stretched from Maryland's eastern shore through the length of Delaware into the free state of Pennsylvania and on up to Canada.